Exclusive Rudy Giuliani. Mr. Mayor, welcome. Thanks for coming on.
Nice to be with you, Ed.
So Republican Lindsey Graham, as you know, chairs the Senate Judiciary Committee. He's now opened this investigation on Burisma and Hunter Biden, maybe Joe Biden, the former vice president. I'm sure that's music to your ears. You've been talking about this for a long time. You've just written a letter to Lindsey Graham. I've got it here, asking that he help you get 3 Ukrainians who want visas to come to America to testify about Burisma. What would they say about Burisma and Hunter Biden?
Well, you know, it's real simple. This case has been real simple from the day that Joe Biden confessed to committing bribery back in January of 2018, and the Council on Foreign Relations didn't note anything about it, although he said precisely what was attributed to President Trump a year and a half later that caused all sorts of... Basically, they'll prove that he committed bribery. The crime of bribery is offering something of value to a public official for official action. Okay, here's what Joe Biden says he did. He offered him a $1 billion loan guarantee. He threatened him with a $1 billion loan guarantee.
Unless the prosecutor...
And in return for that, so that's part one of bribery. Part two is he got the president of the Ukraine to fire the prosecutor.
Right.
But the somnolent Council on Foreign Relations didn't find anything wrong with that. Although a year and a half later, when the false charge was put out that the President of the United States threatened Zelensky with not getting money in order to investigate Biden, within a minute, there were headlines in the New York Times, the Washington Post, calls for impeachment. It's the same thing, Ed.
Okay, on that point, Mr. Mayor.
Except for the double standard that we have that's corrupting us.
Okay, so pardon me. The former vice president, has said it wasn't bribery, that the prosecutor he wanted fired was not investigating corruption enough. That's his case. And when presented with the idea that Lindsey Graham is now investigating all this, here's what the former vice president told CNN. I'll let you react.
He's got a real tough road for re-election. Trump is now essentially holding power over him that even the Ukrainians wouldn't yield to. Lindsey is about to go down in a way that I think he's going to regret his whole life.
Your reaction?
Sounds like a poor imitation of The Godfather. I mean, this is the guy who sent out a decree that they should keep me off television. He every other week he wants to get into a fist fight with the president. When he's asked about all of these conflicts and all this money made by his family selling his office, he says, I don't know my family's business. He says it so often, he's starting to sound like Kate Corleone in The Godfather. I mean, the reality is you'd have to be a fool to think he didn't know that his son was under investigation.
Okay, so he says there's
also,
nothing...
if Joe Biden, I don't care what he said, he's lying.
Okay.
He's been lying all his life. The guy's been a corrupt politician since the brother got phony loans when he was in the Senate. Every place that Joe Biden was a point man, appointed by Obama, the Biden family came away with millions.
Okay, you've talked about that.
Nobody
Romania,
wants to look at it
China.
Because the Washington press corps
Okay, well, we're talking about it now.
him.
Okay, so I want to ask you then. I talked about your letter. You want 3 Ukrainians to come to America and testify.
4.
4 of them now. Okay, in the letter I saw 3. So by the same push of transparency, are you willing to have Lev Parnas, your former associate, who's now been indicted, come and either testify to Adam Schiff or Lindsey Graham in the interest of fairness?
It's up to him. I can't tell him to do it. I don't represent him. As far as I'm concerned, he could testify to everything he did, and it was perfectly appropriate, perfectly normal. He has said a few things lately that are completely untrue and provably untrue. So I don't know what he's doing. I mean, he claims that we had a meeting with the president at the Hanukkah party in December of 2018. Somebody should remind Lev that there were 5 witnesses, including his good friend, Igor Fruman, who all say categorically untrue, provable by records. He's trying to make himself very important. We never had that meeting with the president. He just made it up.
So you never met with the president, Lev Parnas, at that Hanukkah party? You're saying you never met?
Actually, what I did was I introduced the 2 of them to the president. They took a 1-minute picture. They walked away. And what he said was we had a private, long meeting in which the president instructed him to do things. False, untrue, provable by the testimony of 5 witnesses.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, so overnight.
So if he wants to do that, he could make himself into another Michael Cohen. I don't know what's going on. His lawyer makes these comments that are not only untrue, they're provably untrue with the testimony of witnesses and documents. He's getting very poor counsel.
Okay.
I feel sorry for him.
You feel sorry for Lev Parnas. Now, overnight, CNN reported a news story about Lev Parnas. I want to quickly ask this, and we'll move on to other subjects.
Sure.
Which is that Parnas is claiming that an ex-Ukrainian official met with Devin Nunes, the Republican who's the top Republican on the Intel Committee, you know well, met with this former Ukrainian prosecutor general, Viktor Shokin, in Vienna, and that this happened last December. Do you know anything about that meeting? Devin Nunes is denying it. Did Devin Nunes meet with him?
Poor Lev. I don't know what he's doing to himself. I think, once again, that's going to be shown to be provably untrue. I do not believe that Devin Nunes met with Shokin. This is the first I would have heard of that. I think I would have heard of it if it happened. It was before he was actually doing anything for me. That wasn't really until late December, early January. I don't know why he wants to do this. He didn't do anything wrong. I used him to find people in Ukraine because I couldn't trust anyone else. The FBI was closed off to me because the witnesses didn't trust the FBI. They had brought their case to the Justice Department and had been turned away and were worried about the Justice Department. If I went with some other people, it would have been leaked. So they helped me find people, and as I've said, they did a good job.
Okay,
but they weren't investigators, and they weren't James Bond,
right?
And they didn't have personal communications with the president. Igor Fruman would testify to that, and for some reason, Lev has got himself into a grandiose thing, or maybe his lawyer. His lawyer is saying these things. Why a lawyer says things?
Is he saying that, you think, to get off the hook because he's been indicted?
But he's not going to get off the hook by lying.
Okay.
Devin Nunes says he didn't meet with Shokin. I have no reason to believe that he did. And in fact, if he did, there would have been nothing wrong with it.
Okay.
He should have met with Shokin. Shokin had relevant evidence of massive corruption in the Ukraine that was being covered up by the ambassador, being covered up by the State Department.
Yeah.
And not being investigated by the FBI or the Justice Department.
Okay, real quick.
He had every right to talk to him. In fact, it would have been his duty to talk. So I have no idea why this lawyer is creating these additional problems for Lev. They're not problems for me because there's so many witnesses and documents to prove he's lying. That's why I hate to see.
Sure.
I do this for a living, and I hate to see a lawyer do this to somebody.
Okay, you said it's not going to hurt you. Are you afraid, Mr. Mayor, that you could be indicted?
Oh, wow. How long have you known me, Ed?
I've known you several years.
You think I'm afraid?
I don't know.
You think I get afraid?
Well,
I did the right thing. I represented my client in a very, very effective way. I was so effective that I discovered a pattern of corruption that the Washington press has been covering up for 3 or 4 years. You should have jumped all over this in 2015 when this awful conflict was mentioned.
Sure.
And it was hidden and suppressed by the Washington press.
But you know
the reality is I'm embarrassing you because you didn't do your job. And I'm also going to bring out a pay-for-play scheme in the Obama administration that will be devastating to the Democrat Party.
Okay.
I expected, the moment I heard Biden's name, I told my colleagues they're going to try to kill me because they're going to kill the messenger. But damn it, the mafia couldn't kill me.
Right.
Your colleagues are not going to kill me.
Okay, so the Wall Street Journal, though, has reported that you were going to personally profit from a natural gas pipeline in Ukraine, and that's being investigated. You're laughing it off. Were you going to benefit?
I'm laughing it off because it's not true.
Okay.
It is completely false. I have no financial interest in the Ukraine. I'm not going to financially profit from anything that I know of in the Ukraine. If they know of it, I would probably have to disclose it to my hopefully soon-to-be ex-wife because she would get half of it. So, look, you know, if I have no business interest in Ukraine.
Sure.
It is untrue. It is false. It isn't the first time the Wall Street Journal has printed false information. I can't keep up with the amount of false information printed about me.
So let's get to some facts.
I am telling you, if I were representing a terrorist and they were doing this to me because they didn't like my client, all you guys would be promoting me as a hero and a victim of what is, in fact, a concerted effort by the press to destroy me.
Mr. Mayor, I'm not painting you as a villain. Okay, I'm not painting you as a villain or a hero. We're just asking you the question. So I want to.
You're not going to get away with it. Let me make clear.
Yeah, real quick.
I have no business interest in the Ukraine.
Okay. So
here's what I did in the Ukraine
facts.
Goes back several years.
Okay.
It's service work. I've been paid for it.
All right.
I was paid a reasonable amount. I got great praise for the work there. And I also note something else.
Yeah.
It was Zelensky who brought me up with President Trump, not President Trump.
Okay.
And that's because of my reputation. in the Ukraine.
Have you talked to President Trump in the last week or two? Have you met with him? Are you still his counsel?
I do not discuss my conversations with my client. You can assume that I talk to him early and often.
Yeah.
And have a very, very good relationship with him. And all of these comments, which are totally insulting.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen things written like, he's going to throw me under the bus.
Right.
When they say that, I say, he isn't, but I have insurance. I mean,
Okay.
it's ridiculous. We are very good friends. He knows what I did was in order to defend him, not to dig up dirt on Biden. This goes back a year ago before Biden hadn't even decided to run for president. My thought when I began investigating this was to get evidence that will help my client prove that the charges against him are untrue. And they do prove it. In fact, they're ultimately going to prove that this was a conspiracy to frame him, in which high-level Democrats participated, including some people in the White House.
So let's talk about the White House.
Hard to prove that. Hard to get that out in this city, where you got about a 90% hate Trump, vicious group of people who are investigating, what I did in high school.
Sure. Okay, John Bolton said you were a hand grenade, and he didn't want to be part of any drug deal that you and others...
First of all, he didn't say the drug deal about me. And get your facts straight.
Well, he said drug deal about people inside the White House. He called you a hand grenade.
Sondland. He said it about Sondland and Mick.
And Mick
He didn't
Mulvaney.
say the drug deal about, but equally ridiculous comment. First of all, for John to say I'm a hand grenade, well, then he's an atomic bomb. I mean, I know John for years, and he's been a friend of mine. I have no idea why he's saying this. John has no understanding of my role as a defense lawyer. I didn't go tell the White House what I was doing as a defense lawyer. I did it privately. What I did there had nothing to do with his foreign policy, good or bad. I didn't get involved in foreign policy. I was involved in gathering very, very significant evidence to exculpate my client. And when I found the corruption that was being ignored by this corrupt press that we have, I became outraged. Remember, I spent my early career prosecuting hundreds of corruption cases against United States senators, commissioners, law enforcement people, Republicans, Democrats. I despise corrupt public officials.
So
that's why I was so successful in prosecuting them.
So what do you want to happen then? In your letter, where we started with Lindsey Graham, you want these Ukrainians to come to America, you want to get visas. But what do you want, what's the key question you want answered about Hunter Biden and Burisma?
I want all the facts to come out. I want people to see the documents of the money laundered $3 million transaction that went to Hunter Biden, which in and of itself is the crime of money laundering. I've got the documents in my file. Nobody wants to look at them because everybody's covering up for them. They say that the charges were debunked. There's never been an investigation. Complete lie. They say there's no evidence of criminality. How can you say there's no evidence of criminality and Shokin has an affidavit saying it was bribery? You can say Shokin's not telling the truth, but you can't lie like the Washington Post does and say there's no evidence of criminality. There's Shokin, there's Kulyk, there's Kodanitsky, there's three conversations between Biden and Poroshenko, three of them.
Who was the president at the time? Yeah, right after Burisma got investigated.
Right before Biden went to the Ukraine to get the guy fired.
All right.
Well, let's get the transcripts of those three conversations. I've had some leaked information that came through the press about what those conversations are about, and I'm willing to I won't bet.
Yeah.
That's an illegal. But I'm willing to tell you Joe Biden's not going to like those conversations.
Okay.
And if he wants you to believe that he didn't know about his son's business in the Ukraine, that can be disproven 10 ways.
Okay,
and
Mr.
that's
Mayor?
called a false exculpatory statement. If Joe Biden is not prosecuted for these crimes, then nobody in America should ever be prosecuted for bribery.
Mr. Mayor, we appreciate you giving us so much time today, answering tough questions.
It's an outrage. It's an outrage, the kind of protection that he gets. And the part that I really find disturbing is because the media puts on all of this vicious attack on you if you go after one of their protected people, people in law enforcement are afraid to go after
All
him.
right. Mr. Mayor, thanks for coming in. Happy Thanksgiving. Appreciate you coming in.
Thank you. Happy Thanksgiving to you.